In the early 1980s in Lebanon, there was a civil war between Sunni Muslims and Shiites. Imagine you're standing at a roadblock facing a group of gunmen. One of them holds up a tomato and asks you what it is. Now you know that Sunnis and Shiites pronounce it differently. Bandora versus Banadera. You also know that if you pronounce it the wrong way, they're going to gun you down. You look at them trying to figure out whether they're Sunnis or Shiites, but you can't tell. They look the same as you. They're dressed the same. Labels, if that's all you go by, dehumanize. They mark us from them. And by them, you think in terms of stranger, a threat, less. And in Lebanon, at the time, it meant that you were someone to be eliminated. We all carry many labels. In my case, I carry labels like mother, mathematician, textile artist, writer, and brain injury survivor. But none of those labels define me. If you want to know me better, if we want to know each other better, we need to share our stories. So here's another scenario for you. You're at a party, mingling, and you meet this really interesting guy. He's, say, a firefighter. And that's really exciting. You've never met a firefighter. You want to hear about it more. You want to hear his stories. But then it's your turn. He asks you what you do for a living. And you say, "Oh, I'm a mathematician." And then you see it in his eyes. That look. That almost backing away from you. And the nervous smile. "Oh, that's really interesting. Will you excuse me? I have to..." And they find a reason to leave you as soon as possible. Now, today, I have a captive audience, you guys. And I'm going to tell you one of my stories, but don't worry, it's not about being a mathematician. It's more about being a textile artist and a brain injury survivor. I want to tell you a story about the evolution of my relationship with textiles and the lessons I learned along the way. There are a few plot twists in my story. I first learned to love making textiles when I was a child, when my mother taught me to knit. And since then, I've been learning a variety of textile techniques. Spinning yarn, weaving, crochet, embroidery, felting. I know I didn't learn quilting, but many other techniques. Along the way, I also learned to appreciate ethnic textiles. My parents loved them, and my father, whenever he came back from trips, he used to bring beautiful textiles, saris from India, embroidery from Hungary. First plot twist, 9/11. Like many of you, I was badly shaken, and I wanted to make a difference. I knew that a key to peace was education, and I wanted somehow to contribute in that direction. I found my niche in an organization named WARP, which is an acronym for Weave a Real Peace. Our mission is to improve the quality of life amongst textile artisans and communities in need through their textile traditions. And we all know that when you improve the quality of life of someone, education becomes much more accessible. A couple of years after I joined the organization, I started writing a column for the quarterly newsletter. The column was about textile techniques from around the world. I loved doing the research. I was really fascinated by the techniques, and I used what I knew to enhance my own making. A couple of years later, there was another plot twist. I suffered a brain injury. I have clusters of malformed blood vessels in my brain, and 2 of them bled. The only way to prevent future bleeds is to remove them surgically. As a result, I suffered quite a few losses, but along with them came gains. In particular, my life became fuller. I'm more passionate, more compassionate. I discovered writing when I was trying to understand what happened to me. And I learned that I was a storyteller. Now, the articles I now wrote, instead of focusing more on the techniques, now focused on the stories behind them, about the people, the community, the history, the traditions. And along the way, I learned some important lessons. I learned that textiles are integral to humanity. By humanity, I'm talking about the fact that we're individuals, but we're also cut from the same cloth, pun intended. Now, the textile traditions celebrate our differences, and the stories behind them show us the similarities. Textile traditions clearly connect past to present, but they also form ties between us. There's no them, there's only us. At that roadblock, they didn't care about the stories. All they cared about was the labels. We need to share our stories to move past the labels to the person within us, to us.